A quarter century has passed since our world was irreversibly changed. It wasn't a war, a disease, or any other terrestrial threat, but an asteroid that shattered the skies as we knew them. Even now, humanity feels the effects of the Ulysses asteroid and its repercussions. The 1990s were a turbulent time leading up to the fall of the asteroid. In anticipation of Ulysses, masses of people fled their homes and some even tried to overtake their governments, but a select few tried to shoot it down. A Titan railgun system was constructed in the Hades desert of San Salvation with the goal to save humanity. While it was able to blunt the destruction wrought by the extraterrestrial threat, the Space Guard turret network would become the crux of one of the most destructive conflicts in the Eurasia continent's history. During the Eurasian Continental War from 2003 to 2005, the STN would turn its guns toward the very people it was built to protect, quickly becoming the deadliest anti-aircraft system of our time. With a range of over 1,000 kilometers, the STN would wreak havoc on Allied aircraft across the continent, striking fear into the pilots who faced it. Today, we'll be covering the history of the Space Guard turret network, better known as Stonehenge.
Go for the high-value targets first.
So that's Stonehenge.
Is the distance to the target correct? Holy! That thing is huge!
Don't be mesmerized by its size.
The asteroid was first discovered in October 1994 by astronomer Jonathan Payek of Sealsbridge University in the FCU. Analysis by the Kimona Institute confirmed its trajectory towards Earth. However, the asteroid's discovery was held back from the world by the FCU government. It wasn't until 1996 that the asteroid was exposed to the international community, with Eurasia's newly elected president Robert Sinclair stating the following on the matter.
This is an impending disaster, not only for Eurasia, but for the entire world. We must grasp every means possible so that we may live to see the new millennium.
The revelation sparked terror across the international sphere, which was still recovering from the destruction of the Balkan War. Regardless, the scientists of the world went to work for a solution. The International Astronomical Union dubbed the asteroid 1994 XF04. However, it was quickly nicknamed Ulysses after the titular character of Homer's Odyssey. Mathematical calculations suggested the asteroid would hit Earth in early July 1999, with Eurasia and Ania taking the brunt of the impact. Because of the continent-wide threat, Sinclair elected to organize the Central Eurasia Treaty Organization. All nations of the Eurasian continent from North Point to Eurasia were invited to collaborate on a defensive measure to divert, if not outright stop, Ulysses. 3 anti-asteroid measures were conceptualized: an orbital laser system, a missile network using newly constructed and pre-existing launch facilities, and finally a high-velocity turreted cannon battery. The missile system was initially the most viable option, however it fell out of favor as it was likely to spark international tension. The FCU's cannon concept, later dubbed the Space Guard Turret Network, or STN, quickly took center stage. The STN would be based around a ring of 8 compound railguns designed to fire titanic 47.2-inch projectiles at over 13,000 miles per hour into the reaches of space. A compound railgun differs from a proper railgun in that it uses a variation of propellants to throw a projectile downrange. The STN in particular used a mixed powder charge and electromagnetic accelerator to fire its rounds. A variety of ammunition was available to destroy the expected mix of Ulysses fragments that would come into the STN's engagement envelope, ranging from solid armor-piercing shells to thermobaric and even nuclear-tipped warheads. Able to perform over 100 trillion calculations per second, the STN also had a series of backup systems to allow firing in an emergency. The individual turrets could even be manually directed in the event of a computer failure, a redundancy that would come into great importance years later. The STN, in collaboration with the satellite lasers, were expected to greatly reduce the most severe of Ulysses fragments that would disperse. The ring arrangement of the battery looks similar to the world-famous ancient structure of North Point, Stonehenge, a title which was quickly applied to the railguns by FCU media. Optimism swelled into 1997 as the international community had been united as never before seen. Even the superpowers of Ossia and Yuktobania, still recovering from the Balkan War, looked to offer aid to the UTO. Like a light switch, everything changed. While Sinclair and the other members of the UTO were on a diplomatic mission to Ossia to discuss the Ulysses crisis, conservative extremists in the northern nations of Eurasia collaborated in a revolt. Under the guise of battling Ossia's growing influence in international trade, the extremists, led primarily by FCU and Eurasian military officers, organized a coup d'etat to take control of the continent. Outgunned by the rebel forces, the UTO governments formed a military alliance and with foreign contractors in support, were able to suppress the rebellion. The victory came at a great cost, however, as the satellite laser program was shuttered in the Kimona Islands after being captured by the rebels. The Allied forces, unable to recapture the launch facility, were forced to destroy the satellites and even a space shuttle primed to launch. This left the STN as the lone asteroid defense in Usia, with less than a year to prepare for what was dubbed Ulysses Day, July 3, 1999. Stonehenge's engagement envelope encompassed the majority of the Usian continent, from Arusia to the east coast. However, many cities were left unprotected. The port city of St. Arc, most notably, was outside the protection range of the STN. The city, still recovering from the effects of the rebellion, evacuated hundreds of thousands of civilians in the anticipation of July 3rd. On the eve of July 3rd, the Ulysses asteroid, as expected, shattered when it reached the point at which gravitational forces of our planet overcame its own structural integrity. Immediately, the STN went to work, firing on the largest fragments. Despite being the only anti-asteroid measure in place, Stonehenge managed to spare the Usian continent from total destruction. Even when gun number 4 was hit by a wayward fragment, the 7 active cannons continued hammering at the falling sky. The majority of Stonehenge targets were bound for metropolitan areas. Fragments bound to fall in the sea or the vast mountain ranges uninhabited by large populations were left alone. Even so, several cities were severely damaged by wayward fragments that Stonehenge was unable to destroy. Later dubbed Riker, a large Ulysses asteroid fragment slammed into the Erusian capital city of Farbandi. The Riker impact vaporized much of the city's financial district and caused catastrophic flooding tens of miles into the metropolis. St. Arc was effectively destroyed by a fragment as well, killing or displacing the last of the populace still in the city. All in all, while humanity was saved by the actions of the STN, over 500,000 people were killed. Millions more were left as refugees in the wake of the devastation, many of whom flocked to the besieged Federal Republic of Erusia. Growing tensions between the FCU and Erusia culminated in the westward country invading their neighbors San Salvation in mid-2003. Erusia's military occupied the Hades Desert by late summer, and the STN was taken over. President Sinclair ordered an ultimatum. The Erusian government was to leave the STN and San Salvation by September 14th, lest a full military response be unleashed. 16 Usian nations banded together to form the Independent State Allied Forces, a coalition aimed at dismantling Erusia's ability to wage war, but time was against them. Erusian High Command had already taken their trump card against any aerial attacks. In addition to the STN's potential as an anti-aircraft weapon, the Federal Erusian Air Force's 156th Tactical Fighter Wing was deployed to San Salvation for interception duties. While their official designation was Aquila, their radio call sign would soon strike fear into the hearts of the ISAF. Yellow. On September 14, 2003, a strike package consisting of 24 ISAF F-15 Eagles was dispatched to attack and destroy the STN. In an unprecedented event, the vaunted Yellow Squadron was able to intercept the ISAF flight with only 5 of their Yuktobanian-built Su-37 Terminators. Not a single Erusian aircraft was down, while the entire strike force was wiped out without even seeing their target. The devastating loss of air and manpower broke the ISAF's momentum. The fears that Stonehenge could become a potent anti-aircraft weapon materialized as ISAF aircraft were picked off as far as Los Canas and Istis Fortress. During their retreat to the east coast, dozens of Allied fighters fell to the STN's burst warheads. The only reprieve was when ISAF aircraft operated outside of Stonehenge's 1,200-kilometer range. Based on studying the STN's combat effectiveness, ISAF Command had determined that Stonehenge's warheads were ineffective against terrain-masking aircraft. The theory was put to test on December 16, 2004. Operation Blackout was a little-known ISAF strike against an Erusian solar power plant in Faith Park. The airstrike devastated the power plant and crippled 60% of Erusia's power supply to weapons manufacturing. As the power plant fell, the ISAF airborne controller on station detected projectiles approaching the strike package at over 16 times the speed of sound. While several aircraft were lost to the Stonehenge strike, the majority of the flight was able to egress via the massive Faith Park canyon system. The natural barrier successfully prevented total destruction, proving ISAF's command theory right. ISAF fighters were later able to evade Stonehenge fire when retaking Istis Fortress, and by spring 2005, an operation to destroy the STN was drafted. Operation Stonecrusher was scheduled for April 2nd. It would entail a mixed formation consisting of attack aircraft from the FCU and naval fighters from the North Point Fleet Air Arm. The mission profile called for the formation to fly at high speed and an unpredictable course to throw off the STN's long-range tracking. There was a problem, however. By 2005, Erusia had installed a powerful jammer within the center of Stonehenge. The jammer was powerful enough to scramble any ground attack radars pointing at it. Before attacking the turrets, the jammer would have to be destroyed. Intelligence gathered by Erusian defectors suggested the thin surface of the jammer could be perforated by aircraft cannon fire. Once the jammer was disabled, the attack could begin proper. The first ISAF fighter to engage Stonehenge was a Hornet pilot of North Point's 118th Tactical Fighter Wing. The pilot, radio call sign Mobius 1, successfully penetrated the STN's air defenses and strafed the jammer. Almost immediately, the jamming net fell, and the rest of the ISAF fighters joined into the battle. Historians disagree on whether or not the STN was completely destroyed by Mobius 1. However, the lone ISAF fighter was the linchpin of the operation. While the other ISAF fighters struck air defenses and interceptors, Mobius 1 was seen circling in and out of the STN's ring, with turret after turret falling motionless.
Lower altitude. We're taking additional fire from aircraft control during the shockwave.
In less than 5 minutes, Stonehenge had gone from an imposing monument of Erusia's military might to a smoking pile of scrap. As the ISAF formation prepared to egress, they were met by the elite Yellow Squadron, who had been late to the battle as they were redeployed to San Salvation's capital. Once again, Mobius 1 took center stage as he singled out one of the flankers.
I saw a yellow flash on that fighter on the nose. Mobius 1, turn hard! 6 o'clock. Shake him off. Just a little more.
Bruised and battered, the Erusians fled for home, leaving the ISAF flight unmolested for their own return to base. The loss of Erusia's trump card marked a turning point in the war. They began to lose territory to ISAF's advance progressively until 2005, when the Erusian capital of Farbanti was finally taken. While an ultranationalist group attempted to utilize the secretly completed megalith launch facility in the Twinkle Islands on September 26th, they were swiftly beaten again by the 118th Fighter Wing, finally bringing the Continental War to a close. Stonehenge was the crux of two historical events in the Eugene continent. The first, in 1999, saved the continent, and the second, just 4 years later, nearly brought it to ruin. Stonehenge lay abandoned in the Hades Desert for 15 years, the arid climate practically preserving the site as it had been in 2004. No one could have imagined that it would come to light again until the 2019 Lighthouse War broke out. In a desperate bid to turn the tide of the war, the Hades Desert shook as Stonehenge would speak one more time. But that's a story for another day. Happy April Fool's Day, guys! For anyone new to the channel, I typically focus on the history of aviation in our world. If you're interested, I'd also appreciate it if you subscribed and checked out my Patreon. As always, my patrons have come in clutch for me, helping me spew out videos like this one. A special thanks goes out to my Ace of Aces tier. Captain Fantastic, Chuck45, Deuce, FB, Iron, Chris Quinn, Pecops, Shockwave, The Administrator, Tico, and Weefy. Once again, I want to give my wingman Hellion a shout out. They're the ones who are always willing to help with art assets, and I definitely recommend giving their work a look. Wherever you're from, be it Yugia, Osea, Yuktobania, or Belka, I hope you have a good one, and keep that sun at your back.